Good afternoon, take two. Let's hope we can have Zana join us today from Strong Nutrients because we really want to know all things. Yes, hoping. So I know Zana's watching. Hey!
Forward time, lucky.
Right? But we are here. It was not a failure to launch. We are here and we're going to be chatting all things like I haven't wanted to do that.
Yes.
I can't help shaking my magnesium. This has been a real eye-opener for me in the last year because I didn't realize that I was actually magnesium deficient. And it has made a massive change, which is why I'm so keen to talk to you about it today. So thank you so much, Zana Morris, the founder of Strong Nutrients and the creator of Magnesium Rocks. Thank you for joining us on this. It's beautiful outside right now, but it could potentially be raining as the sun is shining. So,
Exactly.
how are you?
I'm very good, thank you. Very, very good. And thank you for having me on.
It feels like yesterday when we were chatting about cortisol and how important it is to reduce our cortisol levels.
Yes, yes,
And
yes.
I think it's a really good way of going from cortisol and controlling that to going into magnesium, which is so important for balancing the nervous system and for many other reasons, which we're going to cover today.
Yes.
But I just thought, know, let's get into it as quickly as
Yes,
we can.
yes, 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 yes. Wonderful.
What your why you believe that magnesium is as important as it is.
Well, it's not even why I believe it, it just is. Quite frankly,
Well,
it's involved with about 600 processes in our bodies. So you'd have a fair while going through all 600. I wouldn't know all 600, quite frankly. The top line ones are, and I mean, magnesium, I'm sure most of you know this, but just to run briefly through, magnesium's a mineral as opposed to vitamin. It's a mineral. It's found obviously naturally in foods, but it is essential for as a little catalyst for so many processes. And the top line, in no particular order, it helps with the regulation of melatonin, which is the hormone that helps us sleep. It helps the production of a thing called ATP, which are our energy molecules, which literally give us energy to train, but also our brains rely on more as we go through perimenopause and menopause. So it can make a difference to preventing brain fog and helping with memory and the likes. It's essential for the absorption of calcium, the utilization of calcium. So it's indirectly then hugely helpful for the bones. It's involved with when our muscles contract and relax, it's involved in that relaxing bit of the muscle. So really important for the heart and the heartbeat, but really important to prevent muscle cramping generally and helps prevent post-training soreness and cramps generally. It's why we have Epsom salt, which are really magnesium salt baths. It helps reduce cortisol. As you mentioned, it helps kind of regulate, get that down. So it helps you relax better, sleep better from that side, as well as helping with the regulation of melatonin. It helps balance and stabilize blood sugar levels. So indirectly can be helpful if you've got belly fat or even with the likes of type 2 diabetes. So long story short, oh, have we lost you? Oh,
I'm here.
are you there? Okay. Um, long story short, so that's kind of the quick overview, a top line of all the things magnesium does. It's involved in loads. Oh, one of the other things it does, which is quite interesting, is it helps the body deal with used estrogen, so it doesn't get recycled through the body, which is where it can be quite unhealthy. So it helps ultimately process and eliminate that. There's a big long list. There's about 600 processes, but it is essential to feel well, quite frankly.
Because I actually read this morning that the World Health Organization sees it as a vital nutrient. So I was like quite interested. I was doing my homework.
It is. It really is. And I think we need it more, particularly once we get into our late 30s, early 40s onwards. As estrogen levels drop, it can affect basically what happens, our calcium uptake and bones. So the magnesium indirectly helps with all of that. But that reliance on ATP, our brain's reliance on ATP, when we go through perimenopause and menopause, everything that supports the production of that naturally, and magnesium is an essential component of that too. So yes, it really is essential.
I have been reading that, okay, it is very important in terms of the absorption of calcium, but at the same time, you shouldn't take magnesium, zinc, or calcium together, and that they are better taken at the time of eating a meal. Is that correct?
Yes, I mean, all supplements generally should be taken with food for perfection, but they can be taken independently. Some of them, now I'm not saying all of them, just to be clear, because obviously we're talking about everything here. And magnesium can certainly be taken independently on its own. Yes, there's the thought process that if you take the magnesium away from the calcium, they don't interfere with the absorption of each other. But that said, from years of working with people and clients, it doesn't blow it if they take the two together. And in fact, there's some stunningly interesting supplements that deliberately combine calcium, magnesium, and zinc. So there's pros and cons to different directions. You don't eliminate the benefit of them by taking them together, but there's different benefits to separating them out. Absolutely, yes.
And then, of course, it's also vital in the absorption of vitamin D.
They all can play a role, one triggering off the other. Vitamin D, yeah, vitamin D is an interesting one. It's a whole other ballpark, as in it's more of a hormone than a vitamin, quite frankly. Vitamin D, you're looking at multiple things, and I'm always slightly saddened by the fact that we all forget where vitamin D should be found naturally. I know we're talking about magnesium today, not vitamin D, but we all do. The best place for vitamin D, and I'm going to potentially be shot for saying this, but it's just a fact, is from grass-fed animals, i.e. even the milk, the dairy. If they're outdoors, grass-fed, you get lovely yellow fat, lovely yellow butter, the yellow fat on the meat as opposed to white fat. That's a sign that there's nice K and D in there naturally. And of course, we've all gone to grain-fed animals, they've all gone into barns, and then we wonder why. Is the only reason we're D deficient because of a lack of sunlight? I'm not so sure.
So that, okay, now I know the topic for our next live. And of course, we're bouncing around here, but we're talking really about all of the
Magnesium.
So I've also read that it can be very helpful in reducing belly fat, which unfortunately, obviously, if you have the rise in your cortisol levels, that happens. And then we discovered that in
yeah, I think it's important to clarify why some of these supplements are great for belly fat. Because again, if you understand the sort of process, it all kind of makes sense. You just said it there, the cortisol. Cortisol, one of it, I mean, it has multiple jobs, if you like, but one of the jobs of cortisol, I mean, the main job of cortisol is to help us with that fight or flight and make sure that the body is ready to go in for a fight or run. And one of the things it's got to do is make sure there's fuel available for the body to use. And it does that by breaking down our glycogen and muscle stores and getting access to the sugars in them and pulling them into the bloodstream. And the body, in response to that, if you don't actually fight or run, in response to that, the body is going to have to release insulin to get the sugars out. And that's where the belly fat starts emerging from this cortisol is stress related kind of side of things. So the magnesium helps in two ways. It helps literally directly, apparently, reduce blood sugar levels. So you're not pumping in more insulin. And equally, it helps reduce cortisol levels. So indirectly, it helps prevent that cycle. So yeah, and that is because always around the middle, all belly fat is connected to your body releasing too much insulin. For whatever reason, it could be genetic, it could be just a bad diet for years, or just a not quite perfect diet for years. It could be perimenopause and menopause and estrogen levels changing. It could be stress. But exactly that, it helps with the blood sugar levels and the cortisol. So yes, it is very supportive for belly fat, or preventing it, more to the point.
And now, I mean, leading up to the beginning of last year, I'd have magnesium in the house, but I would take it thinking, oh, it's going to help with a good night's sleep, because I've always been an insomniac, so that's why I had it. But I didn't focus on it. And when I started getting, I mean, you could actually, if I was looking at myself in the mirror, I could see my eyebrow was twitching. Or I could feel my right, it was always my right calf, right when I was trying to sleep. And then you could actually see the spasms. And then I started looking into it a little bit deeper. And I realized that this is actually a very clear sign of lack of magnesium.
Yes.
And then also the migraines. I've suffered from migraines virtually entire adult, and realized it's neurotransmitters, and that magnesium helps with the neurotransmitters in the brain, and that's what was causing the migraines. Now, what I can say is that ever since I started focusing more on getting the correct dosage per day, I don't, my muscles don't tremor or twitch, and my headaches have been significantly reduced.
Yeah. Which really begs the question, for me, so many ailments are just because we're malnourished. Quite frankly, we just don't have the nutrients in the body that our body needs. And with supplements, and particularly here I'm talking about vitamins and minerals more than herbs, because to me herbs are a slightly different category. But vitamins and minerals, they're compounds that are essential for us to function. Now, we don't need them in stupid amounts, but if you take a supplement, in my view, and you notice a difference, it's a clear indication you're low in it. The supplement isn't like a drug. It's not artificially causing something to occur.
Yeah,
It's getting your body to deal with it in a certain deal as it's supposed to. So it's fascinating. And that kind of does lead to the question, because it often gets asked, how do you know if you need these things? Well, clearly in your case, you did, because your body responded. Yeah.
And what is really interesting is that whenever I was having that, I would end up taking pain medication, which is you're trying to reduce. You don't want that in your system. But I also, as you say, I know that at the end of last year, due to stress and for various reasons, everything was falling apart. So my stress levels were increasing, my diet was falling through the floor, and these were the results. So I started, reducing obviously my cortisol levels and increasing my magnesium intakes and other supplements, and have noticed a significant benefit that I don't have to take pain medication. I don't have those feelings and
stress was likely to use up your magnesium stores. Going through even into perimenopause, chances are our body's using a bit more magnesium. If you train hard, you're going to be using up, because your ATP will get used up. They're your energy molecules, and your body needs more magnesium to produce it. So there's lots of things you can end up doing that would be accelerating the use of your magnesium as such. And then, of course, you need to kind of counteract that and top back up, so to speak.
Well, I mean, the important thing is to say is that if you were having a excellent diet, and on a perfect day, for example, you were sleeping correctly, your stress levels were held at bay, and you were eating all foods rich with magnesium, potentially you wouldn't have to take a supplement. But these days, it's not necessarily the case. We're bombarded by stress. Our sleep is affected as a result, and the food that we get isn't always as rich with I don't know,
with the nutrients. It's very true, and it's 100% the case. For me, supplements, oh my gosh, if you're on an extraordinarily good diet, now and forgive me for what I'm about to say next for those of you listening, but most people I speak to who think they're on a really good diet aren't. They're on a good enough one, but unfortunately the norm out there isn't very normal. So compared to a bad diet, they frequently are in a good one, but for actually what your body needs, it's still kind of left of center. And where supplements to me come in is, oh my God, they're just such an easy way to top it up. Because you're 100% correct. You can do it really by focusing properly on your nutrition and really, really focusing and engaging what you're eating, how much of it, and you really can. But with difficulty, I think. And as you say, our lives aren't natural. They're just not. But we want to live them, and we like doing it, clearly. So supplements are just such a handy way of filling in those gaps fast and easily.
Yeah. Now, I mean, so obviously for me it was quite clear, and it was obviously speaking to you as well, about finding out the fact that those trigger points, the twitching in the muscles and the headaches and lack of energy, obviously belly fat, it was all cortisol. And then realizing that the cortisol was decreasing my magnesium, and then going, oh my God, that's why this was happening. So it was that knowledge of understanding how supplements work and effectively what your body needs, just that kind of listening, before you go down the kind of prescription or over-the-counter pain or whatever the case may be. So that's how I ended up with magnesium. So what would you say are the key things to look out for that would showcase that you are needing magnesium?
Probably the first question the first thing, the very obvious thing is cramps. There's no question. If you get cramping, muscle cramping, first thing, there's other things that can cause muscle cramping, but they're a very small percentage of the usual cause. In almost every case, it's going to be low magnesium, and that will usually solve it almost instantly, quite frankly. Yeah, it doesn't take days of taking it. It's almost as fast as, magnesium is not medication, to be clear, but it's almost fast as taking medication. Once your body gets it in, it can utilize it quite quickly. That's top of the list. The next thing I would usually ask is if you're someone who is falling into that menopausal stage, it is worth considering it, because the body does seem to need more or use up its stores faster. So it is worth considering it. And then you could say, but do I need it during that phase? Well, the things to watch for then are exactly things that you've mentioned there. How is your sleep? If it's not great, it's worth considering it. It's involved in the regulation of the melatonin. It helps bring the cortisol levels down. Cortisol is like a hormone it's like a coffee shot. It wakes you up. And if you're someone, because often people say, yeah, but I fall asleep fine, but then I wake up, that can still be cortisol related. So if your sleep's not great, it's worth considering it. If you get heart palpitations, things like that, it's worth considering it. Brain fog. If you're suffering from a bit of that, it's worth considering it. And quite frankly, if you do take it and nothing changes, then clearly it wasn't the magnesium that you were lacking. But it's very rare that you would take it and not feel a difference.
Well,
and if there is a history of any bone density issues, so osteoporosis. So everyone obviously goes calcium, but in those cases, it's also protein. It's also things like magnesium, your D, and those all of those that kind of help with the utilization and the absorption of the calcium all play a role too. So they're the times I'm thinking, is there anyone else in particular? And they're the times I'd really look at. If you're doing a lot of intense training, it's worth considering it.
Now,
one last. Sorry, I'm putting this in no particular order. I do apologize, because I didn't have I have this list that kind of expands. There's one big one, actually, I forgot. If you increase your calcium intake, and by that I don't even mean a supplement, dairy products, you will likely need more magnesium. And the fastest sign that you will know from isn't just the cramps, it's constipation. Calcium binds and causes everything to contract, and magnesium relaxes. So hence they work together very well with the muscle working. So the calcium makes it tighten, and the magnesium helps it relax, that kind of game. If you have too much calcium without the magnesium, you'll get constipated. So if you eat a lot of dairy, then add in the magnesium, and that'll keep everything flowing.
It is really, everything just works together. So we just have to find balance.
Yes. Yes, and the balance you like. So I love, quite frankly, dairy products. I know not everybody is keen on them. I like them because I think the protein content and everything is brilliant, quite frankly. So I'm a big fan, and it's very low glycemic. So they're great if you are looking for kind of fat loss. I think dairy can work very well, but I appreciate not everyone can have it. So I choose to have dairy. And on the back of that, then I have to choose to make sure my magnesium intake is balancing it.
Brilliant.
I may need less magnesium if I took less dairy.
Right. Okay. Because I know, obviously, menopausal women need to be eating more protein.
Yes.
It's absolutely crucial. I know for a fact I don't even though I've increased it, I'm not even eating a fraction of what I'm still supposed to be eating.
Yes.
But I'm doing a food sensitivity journal. I started this week, and I thought, well, I'm going to tie in a lot of things, and let's just see just how well I'm doing, and it kind of ticks off all the supplements, and it shows how you feel during that. It's really clever, actually. I thought I was drinking loads of water every day. Turns out I'm not even close. And it's just, it kind of shows you that if you wonder why perhaps you're feeling dehydrated or tired or you have a headache, and then you can actually see on paper, because I haven't been taking, and then it also showcases if you start taking magnesium, and then you can look in a week's time, like, yes, the muscle cramps have gone, then you can say, oh, well, this, that. Yeah, so it's, I recommend jotting it down, just maybe seeing yourself over a month and seeing if it benefits you. But yeah, I have heard that obviously if you do have maybe just too much magnesium, maybe you're just upping it a little bit too much, that your kidneys, if you've got healthy functioning kidneys, will flush it out. But they do say, yeah, so that's right, am I right?
Yeah. Magnesium, all that happens is you'll end up, if you take too much normally, assuming your body's healthy and normal, if you take too much, you'll just end up lightly on the loo. So you just take less.
and also, they so what is the maximum amount you should be taking as in supplements per day for a magnesium?
Honestly, this is how long is a piece of string. If I was a doctor, I would give you a figure. But as a nutritionist, I'm going to say it's not true. That's the difference. And it's not saying, just to say, I'm not knocking the medical side of it, but what's considered an RDA doesn't take into consideration the individual, their age in life, their stage in life, what they do in life, how they're eating. So it really can vary from, it depends on you. So for me, okay, normally people when they go for supplements are going to, if you're taking it as a supplement, would go between 200 to 400 milligrams of a supplement. Now, some supplements are better absorbed than others. They're more highly absorbed. You've got all those different blends of backgrounds that they're tagged to, the magnesium gets attached to. And now that's a question which we'll have to look at in a second, because that really can confuse. But honestly, you can go quite high. I would suggest keeping, if it's a supplement, between 200 to 400 up to about a maximum of 800 milligrams. But I have some clients for very short spaces. Occasionally I do for short spaces. I could go up over 1,000 milligrams, but for very short spaces. Now, I'm not recommending that, just to be clear. I'm not recommending you run out and do that, but it would depend on the individual. I have clients, for example, if they really suffer with constipation, for a short while, we'll get the magnesium up, get everything moving again, get the body almost soaked with it, and then cut it right down again. And it just gets everything back into a rhythm. But safely, 200 to 400 mgs of any of the forms really would work very well.
And I think from what I've read, it's people that have heart or kidney issues that should seek medical advice before they start.
To be clear, if you have heart or kidney issues, you seek advice before you go up near any supplement. Not just magnesium, simply put, because the reason being is magnesium would be very helpful for the heart, just to be clear, super helpful for that. And it could be very helpful for the kidneys because it would help the body utilize make sure the calcium is getting used properly and isn't causing havoc in the body. But you do need to talk. And the main reason being, individually, a person might say, yes, if you have this issue, this is fine, but we don't know the medications you're on. And your doctor will. And your doctor will know if you can take it and how much. And in my experience, doctors genuinely now are good. In some cases, they will know exactly what it does and doesn't do and will tell you exactly what to do. In other cases, they'll just not know whether the magnesium will help or not help, but they will know if it interferes or doesn't.
Yeah.
And they'll be able to tell you that bit. And that's the bit you need to know. So all supplements, please always check if there's a major health issue. Just they have all your information.
But in all respects, magnesium is actually a safe one.
Very much.
You in a very short period of time, whether it is working or not, like I did. I mean, I have actually just ordered, these arrived last week because I ran out and I started getting the muscle twitches again, took these and the muscle twitches have gone.
Yeah.
I actually have two.
The one thing, magnesium is probably one of the very few supplements, and I genuinely don't say this about all supplements, I really don't. It's one of the very few I would probably have a very blanket approach to. If you're going into perimenopause or menopause, I'm inclined to say just take it. Your body, I think, really will thank you for it. Whereas other supplements, there's benefits and so on and so forth. The magnesium is one that I think I've yet to meet a woman in their perimenopause, menopausal phase that doesn't benefit from it. Now, the beauty of supplements is you can take them for 2 or 3 days, not take them for a day or two. There's not a big major issue if you start and stop. There really isn't. So you can take them for extended periods where you might miss them every now and again. That's fine. And equally, you can take them for a period for a few months religiously and then just stop. That's fine. There's no issue to starting and stopping these, the likes of magnesium. None at all.
So just because we were going to go on to talking about the different forms of it. Yours has got magnesium citrate. There's apparently 10 different forms, and that has always confused me.
There is a lot of different forms. Now, I'm going to start this with a slight disclaimer when it comes to the forms. Now, slight. It's not saying the different forms don't have different benefits. They do, but not to the degree I think most people think. We live in a world where we like to market things in nice, neat boxes. Mm-hmm. So we like to divide these magnesium down, go, this magnesium's good for that, this one's good for that, and this one's good for that. Now, honestly, I'm going to say, in my opinion, that's all rubbish. Because at the end of the day, it's the magnesium that's doing it. So it doesn't matter which it's bound to, but there are slight differences to what it's bound to will do. So, for example, people say magnesium citrate is best for constipation, but magnesium oxide and magnesium malate will also work for constipation. And others say the glycinate or the gluconate might be better for sleep. Now, hang on a second, the citrate works perfectly well for sleep. So it's the magnesium, it's not the glycinate, gluconate, malate, oxide, all of those that are actually doing it.
I'm so pleased.
That said,
because life is complicated. I don't want to suddenly become a chemist and then try to figure those all out. I think I've
figured them all out. Exactly. So the reason I've chosen citrate, there's pros and cons to citrate. The reason I've chosen citrate is because it's considered one of the most highly bioavailable ones. So the body can really get use out of it. So that's why it's my favorite. I think you get more, for want of a word, bang for your buck out of it. Mm-hmm. That said, for some people, citrate can be a little bit tough on the stomach. So they either take less or they might find they want to go to another form, maybe like a malate form, which is kind of like the basis of fruit, like a, something that horrible anxiety after magnesium glycinate. I am not sure why, but we'll come back to that question. There's a couple of reasons I might have for that, but not sure why. I'm going to come back to that. Sorry, that just slightly distracted me. So you've got ones that are combined to different amino acids, like you get one that gets combined to taurine, which the taurine in itself is useful for energy and if you're training and for the heart. So that one then becomes a particularly good one if you're training, but magnesium citrate would still work for training. You're still getting the benefit of the magnesium. You're just not getting the extra taurine added. And that goes for them all, whether it's citrate, oxide, malate, glycinate, gluconate, taurate. There's all you need to look at. There's a slightly different benefit to what it's tagged to. And that can give them this extra little benefit, if you like, to the use. So my very quick answer to that is don't worry too much about which form you're using, unless, now if you did get stomach upset, then maybe try a different form and you might find it's gentler, but it's very rare to get a stomach upset from magnesium unless you take way too much of it, in which case, as I said, it's just going to flush through. So yes, that's just to make life a bit simpler.
In terms of taking it and you are having a bit of an upset tummy, is that possibly because you're having it on an empty stomach and potentially taking it with food?
Possibly. So the things to watch for, actually, this is a good question with supplements and an upset stomach. It's a very good question. First thing I would ask is, have you started a few supplements at the one time? Because then you might want to backtrack and figure out which one might be doing it. Because sometimes I find clients think it's this one and actually, no, it's this one over here. So common sense, you stop them all and then you reintroduce them one at a time and figure out which one's doing it. In answer to your question, yes, taking things with food is always going to be that little bit better. It'll be a little bit milder, it'll absorb at the food, it'll kind of get lost within it. So yes, that will always help. Usually I recommend just halving the dose. Whatever you're taking, just take a lot less of it, see what your body does. And then if you need to, because you may find you don't, just gradually build it back up to that dose again. And that in almost every case does the trick with almost any supplement. You just go for a lot less and then gradually build it back up. So back to that question, which is now a good time.
Oh,
So anxiety after magnesium glycinate, I am not sure. The only thing that it could possibly be, the question I would have is, do you get it with other forms of magnesium? Because if you do, then it's the magnesium. If you don't, then it's the glycinate.
right.
Because it's the compounds together.
Yeah.
If it's the magnesium, it could be, quite frankly, you really don't need it. Because if you bear in mind, the magnesium helps muscles relax, it helps bring down cortisol levels, and there is a chance maybe if you've too much, your body, everything's dropping just a bit too much, and your body's then reacting in response. It does deal, there's going to be a knock-on impact on breathing levels and so on and so forth. So it could be a case you just really don't need it. I would suggest one of two things. Well, I would start with, do you have any of the symptoms that you think are connected with the low magnesium? If you do, I might try another form of magnesium and see how you get on. And do exactly as you said there, saying take it with food.
So it's just about, and this is again, we go back to where we started. It's like, it's understanding what the supplement itself does. It's understanding your own body and the rhythms. And that's why a diary over a period can help. And then taking it with food and seeing, maybe starting in a slow dosage and seeing how your symptoms improve. And as you said earlier on, if your symptoms are not improving by taking it, because this does showcase, it does show results really, really quickly.
Fairly fast, yes.
Then it's possibly time to
maybe you don't actually need it. I mean, you get your magnesium in foods, as you'll have said earlier, and in a good nutrition. I mean, pumpkin seeds are high, chia seeds are high, almonds have it, your greens have it, spinach has it. So you are getting magnesium in on a daily basis. And if you're someone on a low calcium diet, if you avoid dairy, avoid lots of things with calcium in it. Now, I'm not saying that's neither good nor bad. I'm not recommending you do this. I'm just saying if this is your natural way of eating, so to speak, and you're on very rich, magnesium rich foods, if you don't do a huge amount of training where your body might use it up, if you're not under a lot of stress, if you sleep well and all of that, then there's a very good chance you don't need it. So ignore all of us on Instagram and don't take it. It won't do you any harm to take it, but you probably don't need it.
Also, could you share your secrets? Because I want that. It would be just delightful to have a really calm, balanced, everything is just settled. But I just don't feel that life in 2024 or in any of the 2020s has been at all balanced. And I feel like that's why
I'm going to give my advice. We need to kill Instagram. We'd all probably be happier. Sorry, I'm joking. I'm so joking. I'm joking. But if you think about it, the screen time has just gone up, hasn't it? That doesn't help us, I'm afraid. I
mean, we're just bombarded with bad news all the time.
Exactly.
And I could make up its mind, because in South Africa as a child, when the sun shone but it was raining, we would call it a monkey's wedding, and it would be so excited. We'd go out in it and we would as an adult, when the sun is shining but it starts raining, I'm just so confused. It's just not good for my brain.
It's called being Irish. Yeah, we grew up with that. The two went hand in hand.
Crazy. Yesterday was really, and that wind that keeps blowing. I was filming outside my window. I mean, you could see these really beautiful blue skies, and you see, just not very far off, little tornadoes taking place, and it was all blowing this way, and I was shouting to the cat to come inside. It was just
I love I love it.
Yeah. But so what is there anything else you'd love to share?
Anything else we need to share about magnesium? I think you've got it. I mean, I do find it a fascinating supplement. When I was in my 20s, a trainer I was training with was recommending I take it for energy. I took it for energy. It did nothing for me. So I used to think, I don't get this. I don't get it at all. And then occasionally I get muscle cramps, and then I take it. And that was the only thing I ever considered it for. And it's only once I hit into my 40s and onwards that you kind of go, hang on a second. Now I'm really realizing what magnesium is for. Now I can feel it. I do think it's an extraordinarily helpful supplement, and exactly as you said, if you have any of those sort of challenges or issues or health issues, you do notice it. If almost you could notice it the same day. I mean, back to when to take it, which is tied into this. With food is great, it absorbs with the food, but taking it before bed on an empty stomach doesn't do any harm, and it can really help sleep. So that really shows it's working immediately. It's working within the same night. But the beauty of it is it doesn't put you to sleep. It's not like any sleeping tablet. All it's doing is helping the cortisol levels balance up, getting the blood sugar levels balanced up. It helps the regulation, as they say, of melatonin and so on and so forth. So your body is back to where it should be, which is why you're sleeping.
It's balancing. Because I mean, when we spoke previously about cortisol, I was waking up at 3 or 4 o'clock every morning. I was like, it's like this internal alarm system that was going off. And that was obviously whatever I was doing, the cortisol had worn off or something like that. And then so, I don't know.
Yeah, cortisol is our internal coffee shot. And if it starts kicking in at 3 in the morning, or with that lovely term, I love the term, but it gets used a bit too much, that circadian rhythm is completely off.
Yeah, 100%. Thank you. As always, absolutely fascinating. Much more about the importance of magnesium, and I hope everybody else is as well. And if there are any questions that we didn't get to answer today, please do DM me and or Zana, and we will get that get those answered. And thank you as always. I'm big time into my magnesium rocks. They have really helped me balance my headaches and those aches and pains, and
well, thank you, Zan. It's been brilliant. Thank you.
Have a great day, everyone, and here's to better weather in April.
Yeah.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.